And we are live.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watchman News. My name's Lori Swan. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you're new to the, it's been a while since I've done this. If you are joining our live chat, we do ask that you keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forth to us by the platform we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, so you know when we go live. It's been a while since I've said that, guys. We kind of took a little hiatus, but we are back tonight. Hey, Ernie, how you been doing?
I'm blessed. How are you?
Good. Yeah, we took a little bit of break, but we definitely wanted to come back to talk to our special guest tonight. We've got in the house Dr. Joye Pugh. Hello, Joy.
Live and in camera.
Hey, rushing in from church. I'm like, okay, I'm dressed. I can do camera. I barely got in the door coming in from church. We went a little longer tonight than normal, but I always look so forward to this show. I mean, I've thought about this. It just excites me to be a part of this with you two. And that bumper music just sets the tone for me. I love your bumper music. I don't know what it is about it, but it just kind of gives you that umph of whatever, about what we're going to be talking about tonight. And you know,
I think
it's
a
been
lot
one
of
of those
times
things
if I
that,
would just listen to my bumper music, I would probably go live more because it gives me that little burst of energy.
yes.
But yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. We've been looking at some of the things that's going on, and it's we are so close, aren't we, Joey?
Wow. I mean, the thing about it is you and I have been doing this a long time. We have really been doing this a very long time. It tells my age sometimes. I'm just like, I can't believe how old I am. It's like, oh my gosh.
Between the two of us together, I think we have over 40 years doing this.
Oh, more than probably more than that.
So
That's about as old as I am.
No,
hey,
wait. I've been doing it for 49 years.
Well, if I really said when I first started thinking about all of this stuff, after I had that dream when I was 6 years old, that would make me involved with this for 61 years.
Right. So.
But, I got really involved in it more toward my high school years and then into my college years. So, yes, I mean, you put my time and your time together, we've got 90 something years involved in all this.
I got about 20 into it.
I started to say we're a lot older. We're a lot older than you, Ernie. But the thing about it is,
it's a baby.
When you've been doing this as long as we have, I mean, it lets you see things in a much greater perspective. I mean, I can watch TV or read an article, or you can send me something to look at, and immediately red flags, because I've studied it so long. It's just like a doctor when he has a patient and they start telling him symptoms, he's seen every possible symptom, and the ones that are like accumulating for this, it's definitely usually in that direction. If not, he's got enough, I guess, broad knowledge of things to be able to start thinking, well, it could be this, it could be this. And so then you start ruling it out and you just start bringing it together. And that's the same thing that we're doing. I mean, it's just very detailed research that leads to more than just a theory. It literally leads to a possibility. And our possibilities have gotten great significance over the years of studying this. I mean, they've become more than theories, and it's definitely not conspiracy theory, because now that we have the science that will back up some of the things that we've been talking about for years and years, I love it. Because when I wrote the new book, Be Smart, that was what I wanted to do, is say, okay, I've been telling you all these things, but now I've got the science that goes along with this that even proves it that much more. And then once you get it in a scientific model, then it takes it away from the conspiracy stuff. And I really like that, because I started out, wanted to be an attorney. And so I look at everything just to the nth degree. I laugh about it, and all my friends do, because my mother told me when I was a little girl that I came out of the womb asking the word why. And, and it's true. I mean, I just have that many questions. So I sometimes can be my own devil's advocate when I come up with something, and then I can come up with 50 million questions as to maybe why that's not right. But then I'll try to, research it and find out what the deal is and how it kind of plays out. But I will tell you this. I don't know if I ever told you this before. My mother was wonderful because she had to put it with me. I used to tell her that I wish she'd had twins. She told me no. But one of me. But the thing that was interesting is that when I was probably about 10 years old, we were riding along down the highway. We'd been into town. We lived way out in the country. So we were riding along. And so I'm asking, Mama, why is it this? Why is it that? Why is the sky blue? I mean, I'm asking those kinds of just constant questions, trying to get an answer. And she's driving along and she looks over at me. She says, Joy, she says, can we be quiet for about 10 minutes? And I sat there and kind of looked at her kind of funny. And I said, well, Mama, we'll be home by then. And she says, no. So this is something. What I'm trying to say is, all my life I've had this inquisitive nature to just not look at something and just accept it just like it is,
right?
And listen to somebody say, well, it's probably this, or this is a theory. Well, I wanted to go further than that. And so sometimes it's got me in a lot of trouble for asking questions. I mean, when I was in college, everybody said, keep your mouth shut and let the professor say what he's going to say. And you just, write the papers the way he wants it to be written. But sometimes I get myself in trouble because I would be like, well, why is it like that? But today I'm so thankful that God gave me that inquisitive nature, because that is what makes me able to do what I do. And so now, from all these years of asking questions and trying to find answers, it's like I tell people that I'm not selling a book to just make money. What I want you to understand is that my books answered my questions before they became books for you to purchase. So in other words, you are actually reading my homework, and I am not going to fool myself because I'm that inquisitive. I don't want somebody just giving me a quick answer. I want the details, and whatever it takes, I'm going to get down to those details. And many times I've had to kind of wipe the slate clean, because unfortunately, when we were growing up, we learned these little Bible stories that don't really line up with scripture, and had to kind of throw things away because it was not really the truth. And now it's a lot easier for me to, like you say, when things come on TV or whatever pops up like it is in these last couple of weeks, you can't help but see that this is all lining up to the end of days. I mean, you study this long enough, and it says in scripture, the watchman on the wall is going to know the season. We may not know the day or the hour. It says you won't know the day or the hour. That means I won't know that tomorrow at noonday that Jesus is coming back. That's
he doesn't even know when he's coming back.
He doesn't know. But it does say, if you know the scriptures, and it tells you that people who study prophecy are blessed. And I mean, scriptures talk about this. It says, if you do this, you will know the season. And I think that we can clearly see from the research we've done and being watchmen on the wall, that we can see that the season is here. And, there's only 4 seasons in a year.
Right.
But any time, based on what scriptures say right now, it says when the gospel is preached to the world, the end will come. It doesn't say it might come, maybe it'll come. It says it will come. So, all of that's been done. So there's not a lot of things left other than us seeing the Antichrist and, getting a mark of the beast and that kind of stuff. That's still really left out there, because we can clearly see from just what we were talking about before we came on about the weather. Oh my gosh, just look at the weather patterns on this world. And if we don't think that our coming summer and hurricane season and tornado seasons are not going to be really even worse than last year, don't fool yourselves. It is going to get worse and worse, because that's what scripture says. So yes, it's an amazing time in which we live. And the prophets would have given anything to have lived during this time to have seen what they told us was going to happen, because it is literally playing out before our eyes.
Well, we've been talking about the weather, and a lot of people still deny that there's weather manipulation going on. There's cloud seeding going on. We've known that there's been cloud seeding and weather manipulation since way back in the Vietnam War.
That's right.
Government was cloud seeding back then.
And they admitted that about Dubai. And look what
yes,
right now.
Look, that's right. Dubai has actually gone through some terrible stuff because of I was talking about this the other night on a radio show. What people don't understand is this: when you change one element, in other words, if we go out to try to seed a cloud, and yes, we can seed a cloud and we can make it rain, but when God does it, every other element is in place. Right. In other words, it's the right temperature, it's the right time of day, it's whatever's the winds are blowing it a certain way. Right. So when we manipulate something, we can't control the rest of the elements. And Dubai found out exactly what that was like.
Yeah.
What happens when you try to play God?
Yeah, you can't
only play God for so long, and then you're going to have to face the consequences of those actions. And I think Dubai is a great example.
I think so too.
I had mentioned, we were talking about, the tornadoes in Nebraska and Oklahoma the last few days, 125 tornadoes in the last 48 hours.
Yes.
And, we are going to start seeing science fiction level storms.
Yes.
Well, let me paint a picture for you about that. Yesterday, there was a line of strong thunderstorms that were heading from south to north. each one of those thunderstorms were very strong tornadoes. Now they were issuing out PDS warnings left and right for the same town because they kept getting hit with storm after storm after storm. And for those of you who don't know, PDS stands for particularly dangerous situation. That means a tornado that has touched down, that has the capability of being potentially catastrophic to whatever it touches.
Correct.
Right.
And it's the second highest level other than tornado emergency, which is what we witnessed on Friday when a tornado was touched down that was over 2 miles wide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Where in history have you heard of something like that? There's only one time I know of, which was back during the Obama years from Joplin. I think it was Joplin, Missouri.
Yeah. Well, I think that the scale that we have, whether it be the F scale for the tornadoes, or the category scale for the hurricanes, or the the scale for earthquakes, I think that there's going to come a point in the not so distant future where we're going to have to take a look at those scales and reevaluate them, because we're going to see storms that are going to go past the 10 on the Richter scale, go past a category 5 on the hurricanes, and past an F5 on the tornadoes. So I think that we're going to be seeing that, and that is going to be in direct consequences of this weather manipulation that we're seeing.
Well, here's the thing: the U.S. has been spared with these catastrophic tornadoes not hitting major cities.
Right.
Now, I watched a scenario in which Dallas, Texas was going to be hit. That is that scenario when it goes above the Fujiwara scale, which is the scale that rates the tornadoes.
Right.
We're going to see that.
Right.
Eventually.
We are. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, when I wrote my book, Eden, the Knowledge of Good and Evil 666, I wrote back then that they had already started manipulating the scales, and that they were literally dropping down and recategorizing our hurricanes and our earthquakes. And so they were not really comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges when I caught that information like I did. So in other words, if they were saying, oh, well, our hurricanes and our earthquakes are not any worse than they've been being. But what I would find out was that they had dropped the scale down. And so it wasn't being done like it was years ago. And I think it was because they knew this was coming, and they were already trying to get it where it didn't look like there was changes occurring, because they know it's going to escalate past this other and be so much more obvious, where if they've kept it low key and you really didn't know that they were saying that, let's say, a category 5 and they were doing it as a category 4 and making it look like, well, we haven't had but 1 or 2 category 4s, then that made them look good and nobody panics. I will always believe that way back when they started messing with the HART project and they started manipulating with the weather, that they already knew that we had a problem. I mean, China was seeding clouds. If you remember, I think it was, they gave out of the particular stuff that they put in the clouds. Is it silver nitrate? There's something they put in there to make it happen. And they had actually, I guess, used it all up during that particular time. But I think that anybody that's on the other side of the fence, because we as Christians know this is coming, but the other side of the fence with the serpent lineage and that kind of stuff, they don't want people to realize this is all coming from God. They want people to realize it's coming from global warming. Because if you believe it's coming from global warming, you don't really stop and think, well, God's wrath is fixing to fall and everything that's in scripture is about to happen before our eyes. So they're blinding people to make them think it's not really any worse unless it gets to the point where they have to make changes. And that's when we started seeing in the last 5 years, everything going to unprecedented and historical particular cases. And that's the thing that to me is most significant, is that they are still trying to say global warming and the cows and they're releasing too much gas and that's causing us a problem. And lo and behold, the world is believing that and not getting it, that what scripture told us was going to happen with the famines and the plagues and the pestilences, the changes in the sun, moon, and stars, the fighting amongst people, the selfishness, the lack of human caring for your fellow man, the changes in the world that just literally are happening all at the same time are not being caused by global warming. The sun is not on this earth. And yet, in the last 2 weeks, we have had 2 G4 geomagnetic storms that literally threatened our technology. You know, if you didn't keep up with NOAA and understand about, you know, how they keep up with this stuff, then, and if you don't keep a lot of information, let's say coming in on a computer that tells you what the sun's doing, but the coronal mass ejections the other day, they had 4 of them at one time that were massive. And whenever the sun does that, it throws out such electromagnetic wave activity at us. I mean, that's a major burst of radiation that's coming right at our planet. And you could see in the last couple of weeks, you've had problems with TVs going to pixels, telephones dropping, technology not working, and nobody's really paying attention. That's getting worse. And that's not because of our carbon emissions on planet Earth.
And it also increases the chance of the tectonic plates, you know, being moved.
Exactly. Shifting.
You know.
Well, anytime we have electromagnetic waves coming in, I mean, it changed the aurora. I mean, I think they saw it as far as Florida. So, I mean, you're looking at how serious that influx of radiation and electromagnetic waves on the planet. Well, when you get that happening, you've got something called Schumann resonance, of which Earth is vibrating. And when it gets a direct hit from the sun like that, it throws everything out of kilter. So that means the homeostatic environment that we live here on this planet, when you have something of that nature hitting us, don't think it's not affecting you and I and the birds and everything else that are here, because it is. Because anytime we have influx, it changes everything.
The Schumann resonance was it's been very, very odd the past year.
Yes, it has.
And we've talked about it here on the show. We've actually, you know, come in and talked about it and showed the strangeness that's taking place with the resonance. And, you know, for those of you who don't know, that Schumann resonance is literally the heartbeat of the planet. It goes along with the frequencies. And it has a direct impact on everything that is living. Anything that is created with water will start to vibrate on a different frequency. And that's when we see, you know, a lot of these, I want to say, illnesses taking place.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just in our environment and with the weather. It's or with our technology. It's with the bodies too.
Exactly. And, you know, once those things start happening, it actually breaks down your immune system. And just thinking, if you just ask people, hey, how are you sleeping lately?
Yeah.
Most people would tell you, I might have got 2 hours. I was up and down all night and I was just
ringing in the ears is another thing. The ringing in the ears.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
All of that, if you just pay attention, and people, you'll say, how are you feeling? I am just so tired.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, all of that is a direct result of too much electromagnetic activity on this planet. And then you add the 5G technology, and then, you know, they're talking about going to 6G. We already scientifically know that 5G has that ability to deteriorate the human body as far as an immune system. So, you know, you add all of this stuff coming in from the sun, and then you've got it changing the vibration of the planet, then it's changing our vibration, and then you've got the 5G going on. Just imagine the toxicity that it's giving everything when it's doing that. But yet, those people are still wanting people to believe, oh, this is just because we have too much carbon emissions. And,
you know, I saw the other day that the first documented illness directly associated with global warming was documented on somebody's medical chart. I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I could. There are so many other things that you can chalk up to the illnesses, the toxicity of the air, the toxicity of the water, the toxic food, GMOs, the things we're not supposed to talk about in the arm, and
That's
those
right.
shots. There's so much more that we can document that is taking and deteriorating our entire immune system rather than putting it and chalking it up to global warming.
Well, it's one of those things that as long as they can make people not think about Jesus coming back or Jesus being the savior of mankind and that you need to get your life right, they're going to give every kind of excuse in the book to keep you thinking that they are trying to fight global warming. And so therefore we should have to, give in to the sustainability goals and objectives, which we see literally they're pushing industry to follow, businesses to follow. And you can't get away from it because the whole world believes that if they don't work together, that the sustainability of the earth will not exist. Well, it's not going to exist. And we are going to get hit by wormwood. And we know that they're trying every way in their power to figure out how NASA can land on a asteroid or blow one up coming this way. We know that all these years they've had that Luciferian, they call it the telescope called Lucifer. It's out there on the Indian reservations that they're looking because they think it's coming out from behind the sun. And they're trying to figure out how do we keep it from hitting. They all know this is coming. And they all know that the famines and the ability, like we saw last year with all the cows that died from heat exhaustion all at one time, which was very strange.
Right?
And then the fact that we saw Lake Mead almost get to the point of Lake Powell getting low like that and not having water. And then some places it was inundated with floods. And then you cannot not see that Earth is out of balance. But it's out of balance because everything's out of balance. The sun is literally, and they'll try to say, "Oh, we're in that 11-year, cycle."
It seems like that's their excuse every
time they say that, and then they'll say, "Well, it's coming a little sooner than normal, and we were not prepared to see this happening until like 2025." It's just this: they feed you this stuff because they don't have a true answer. The true answer is that God said at the end of days, every bit of this is going to happen, leading up to a terrible, terrible battle called Armageddon on this planet. And so we can see that's where we're headed. Look at the Middle East and what's been going on over there. My gracious. All it would take is just somebody get mad enough in Iran to decide they're going to use their nuclear capability that I believe that they have got developed and just waiting to the chance to use it. And all this little nit-knacking against Israel, they're just trying to see, where does the Iron Dome work? What is the capability of the United States to keep certain missiles out of there? They're playing with it, trying to, and anybody would do that. A good general would do that. I'm going to hit you over here and then we'll hit you over there and we'll try this because I'm going to see where you are the most vulnerable before I send the big thing at you. So I feel like they're preparing for nuclear war in that area, and Scripture tells us that that's what's going to happen in that area.
Exactly, and we're watching it unfold. Iran has been fighting for years to not have the inspectors go in and to look at them and to do that. Israel too. Israel said no to the inspectors as well. We know darn well. I mean, everybody can say to the defense of Iran, well, they've never started a war with anybody before. Well, that's all great and dandy. It only takes one time.
That's right.
And we do know that they have nuclear capabilities. We do know. I mean, I'm watching. I'm literally waiting for something to happen at the Dome of the Rock.
Yes.
I mean,
there's going to, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of things that are going to take place just to agitate, to bring about what's going to happen. The other thing is just that you can't just not pay attention to every aspect of what's being said. And a lot of people think, well, we're the good guys and there's the bad guys. The problem is when you start talking about the European bloc against the Asian bloc that, really ends up at the Battle of Armageddon, they all come from a root of evil. It's all part of an evil plan to really destroy planet Earth and God's holy place over there. That's what it's been about since the beginning, that God had a promised land and Satan does not want God's people to inherit his promised land. I mean, it's always been an issue of that little piece of property, and it's not big as anything. That's the weird thing, that the whole world is going to end up in that battle and in a strategic location that literally, like Patton and MacArthur said, is one of the most perfect natural battlegrounds on the planet. So it was absolutely built by God in the beginning. So it's been sitting there waiting for the purpose of this coming battle.
Right. And that is, my husband was in Israel about 17, 18 years ago. And he said that valley is it's breathtaking. Yes,
it's huge. And when you hear those people talk about it that do military, like Patton and MacArthur and other people that have seen it, that are the best generals, I guess you could put out there, it literally is. It is a battleground. And if anything, that should prove to anybody that there's a God that predicted one day and prophesied it. And John, the Revelator, wrote about it. You just can't make that stuff up. Exactly. It's there, right there for you to see.
As it is written, so shall it be.
That's right.
So keeping an eye on things that are going on with Iran, keeping an eye on with Israel. Speaking of Israel, so we the red heifers.
Yes.
So everybody by now, everybody who's listening is probably most likely aware of what the red heifers are. But the red heifers are they have been in Israel. They are at the age of 3 years, and they were supposedly going to be sacrificed on Passover. I can't confirm, but supposedly it happened on Wednesday, and like I said, guys, I can't confirm this because it was not public. We knew it wasn't going to be public. And so if it did, they have the ashes of these red heifers to purify the temple, and it could go up at any time. And
well, we know that everything's going to be a real fast thing because we're like a woman in travail, where we've had all this stuff happening for years and then months. Then everything will just happen quickly.
Right. But what's interesting is how things are aligning. Guys, you remember back, we've talked with Joy many times about, with Queen Elizabeth, and, when she passed away, Charles took he ascended to the throne. And we have always stated, and this has always been mine and Ernie's and even Joy's stance, is that Charles is just a place set. He was not going to be a king for the duration. He was only going to be for a very short time. And then in January or February of this year, it was announced that he has cancer, which now we know that it's most likely pancreatic cancer, which is a very fast moving cancer. So they've already started, let me pull it up, with plans for his funeral. And it's Operation Menai Bridge. When Queen Elizabeth died, it was London Bridge has fallen. And so when we were live when it happened.
Yes.
We were live. We carried that live on the air.
I called it 5 minutes before it actually happened.
You did. Yeah. Ernie, we have the program that we use to broadcast, we have the chat, which I can chat with you guys that are watching, but we also have a private chat over here. And Ernie had private messaged me. He says, I just have a feeling it's going to be very soon. They're going to announce it very soon. Like 5 minutes later, they announced it.
That's right.
But so, we knew that this was going to happen. And now that we've got William, William's got a lot on his plate right now, doesn't he, Joy?
I mean, I'm telling you, I think back to the way that they presented Kate. Last time we were on, we were talking about Kate Middleton and all that had happened with her. And I had a friend that does have access to a lot of things from England, and she is in Canada, I believe, but she has access to a lot of the things that are happening with the British. And what she had heard from, I guess, her connections was that thing that they did in the garden with Kate, she said that the people she had worked with said that there's always a breeze in the gardens in England. That's what the people who lived there said. And that the flowers in the background where Kate was sitting never moved. So they said they felt like that there was a green screen behind her and the background had been inserted. Okay, there's a possibility for something like that. But I did think that was interesting that they had come out with that. And then they were saying that they thought that Kate's face was not really right, that the lips were not the right shape. They were stretched a little bit. The jawline was not right. And her eye color didn't seem correct. They did say that there does not seem to be like a human light in the eyes, like a normal light that you have in a human eye. And she said, I felt like that. And then some people had a question about the striped sweater giving a message, but she said she didn't really understand what that could be. But she said that apparently some people had seen her wear that sweater at sometimes before, which was kind of interesting because usually they are so into their dress code that they have a little bit better looking. Then there was another thing that a lot of people questioned. Where was William? Why was he not beside her, offering her just an arm around her, support? And the question had come up many times, I guess, in what they were discussing about it. But they said if you use AI technology to do a video, that for you to be able to make it work for both of them, that it would have been harder for anybody else to have been in that setting with her. So they felt like that it was artificially, generated. But the thing about it is, you look at it and you go, very sick lady, definitely had some major issues, or they could have just come out and said something without keeping it going like they did to make people think that she had actually died. But the thing about it, if Charles and she were to die, there's no doubt that William will have that clear path directly to the throne. But, if you stop and think about it, he will get a great deal of sympathy as a widower, single father, someone who just lost his father as a mentor. And already we know the public totally admires him. But under tragic circumstances, you can always say, going back to when Diana had what happened to her, the feeling they had for William and his brother was just beyond a pouring out of caring about her children. So I think that it's something for us to continue to pay attention to, because the dynamics of these two people being sick is going to set up something if they die.
Well, what are the chances of them both contracting cancer at the same time? I mean,
well, the thing about it that I've always said is there was a reason why Pope Benedict moved out of the way to get the last pope in there. And definitely he's the last pope, according to the St. Malachi prophecies. And then when you look at Charles, and he literally had to pick up and take over. I think they tried to keep Elizabeth alive as long as they could, but it was like they couldn't keep her alive any longer. So he was there in case she did die before it was time for William to take over. So he was the place setter. He was. That's right. And that's kind of like what I think happened with Pope Benedict,
Right.
that they tried to keep really John Paul there as long as they could. I mean,
Yeah, you
that
know
was,
what? I think John Paul dying so soon after becoming Pope, because he was poisoned. I think that threw that whole timeline off quite a bit, because we've never seen a Pope.
be in and out. But that was according to the prophecies that he
Yeah.
died within the, I mean, it met the prophetic thing that was written by Saint Malachi. And then, like you say, it threw John Paul II in there to be in there so long. And my gosh,
Right.
he just went to his death's doorstep. But yet there was Benedict, who didn't really have any, what I would call, serious issues, but he moved out of the way.
He did.
He really moved out of the way.
We've never had two popes. It's usually the Pope is until death do they part.
That's right.
The death. We've never in the lineage of the popes have we ever seen two popes at one time. But that again, that was Malachi's prophecy as well, wasn't it?
It was. And then you look at Pope Francis, and he got his things from Saint Francis of Assisi, which was the ecological. He was into the ecological stuff, saving the wildlife and doing all that kind of stuff. And so he's playing right into the Peter the Roman, which is prophesied to happen at the end of days. So when you look at that, you think, well, now how could a lot of things happen to get the next level to where it needs to be? Because like I say, everything now is not going to be drawn out. It's going to be hit until we get into the Battle of Armageddon. So if that's the case, then they've got to start putting the Antichrist in place. Because we've got to the point now that we have put the digital dollar out there. We've got the Amazon one that you just put your palm in, and it does the biological reading of your hand with your capillaries and veins and all of that. So we're getting away from you using a credit card, and we're getting into a biological right hand.
Right.
And then, like I'm talking about with my book, using the pineal gland, which is a transmitter and receiver, to connect it with Neuralink that would send information directly to the satellites and make you into a beehive mind.
And that's where 5G comes in, because that connects people to the Internet of Things.
That's right.
Which will make it so that we essentially are connected to the planet and all the computers and all the technology, and it's supposed to be designed to make our lives easier, when in reality it's the complete enslavement of the human race.
And that's the perfect way to do it, because once you use the DNA of a person and the vibratory response of that DNA, then it's like your own phone number. You have your own vibration, I have my own vibration. So when we connect up, they know it's me because of my vibrational pattern of the DNA and the transmission of it through the pineal gland, the same way as whatever yours is will be transmitting and receiving based on that, just like the cell phone does with your personal number.
And that's why they did that push, that hype of get your DNA tested through Ancestry.com, through 23andMe, find out where you come from, find your lineage. Now, they wanted your DNA so they could specifically pinpoint.
That's right. And, they had a very big hit not too long ago and sent out all kinds of stuff that their, computer systems had been breached. Yep. And everything was taken.
Right.
I mean, it's a way for them to give data away from without saying that's right. Without saying like I say, it's stolen. We do without it. We couldn't help it. That kind of thing. It gets them off the case of you going after them for giving somebody your DNA when you didn't approve for that to be done. But a lot of people didn't read the fine print when they sent that stuff in, because there was things in the fine print that they were going to use it for, possibly some type of checking out how things could do with biological whatevers. And
they
they used
the
the
print said that they owned that DNA.
That's right. And people did not read. Well, they
No.
weren't even interested. It's like when you get something, it's got all these long pages, and you go, I am in a hurry. I accept. And you just go do it.
Correct.
That's what I would tell you 99.9% of the people did. And so now they've had a breach on all of that. And now that has supposedly been stolen. So, yes, somebody has got huge databases of people's DNA. And like I've said on this show many times, is that once you have that DNA, if I take that DNA, if I just take DNA out of me and I carry it to California, if you traumatize me here in Georgia, my DNA out there is going to react in the petri dish. And people do not get it that there is a connection, but there is a direct connection. And it's something that science is just now getting the capability to understand about it. But the bad guys have been understanding this for quite some time, and that's why they've got all those satellites already circling planet Earth. So they've got enough of them up there that they can start pushing the promotion to get you connected.
Right.
And if we go to 6G, which I always think 6 is very important, because 6 is the number of man. And to me, 5G was a warfare tactic that was developed to be able to do warfare and hit you with something you couldn't see coming and totally keep you from being able to move or fight against or whatever. Because once you get connected to it, you can make your heart speed up. You can do all kinds of weird things to you, disable you without even firing a shot. So if we go to 6G, and that's the number of man, then you can see, well, hey, this is the new great reset of humanity. And that's what they're calling it. And then at the same time, it's the fourth industrial revolution. And so if you don't want to go through the great reset of humanity and you're not wanting to be a transhuman, which is a requirement to take that mark of the beast, because that connects everybody up. And once you get connected up, yes, you'll have the mind like Alexa in your home. When you ask a question, she responds immediately, and you'll have that connection that you get instantaneous information. But the thing about it is they want everybody to be the same. They want you to be the worker bees of the hive.
Right.
So they want to put everybody making the same amount of money, everybody doing the same thing. So, there's not anything like having to turn in income tax and things like that. They already know what they pay you, what they take out, what's yours. There's no gameplay. You just get rid of all of this thing with drugs, whatever. You don't have to deal with any of that. Once that's connected up, there's no way, unless you're a part of that system, to buy, sell, or trade anything. Because at that point, when money goes into cyberspace, who cares about silver and gold? You can't eat it.
Right. Exactly.
So it's a way to get humanity connected. And that's what they want. They want to take us back to the Tower of Babel and have that universal collective consciousness that everybody is the same. And when you do that, I just keep warning people every time I get a chance on a radio show to say, look, that is how you get rid of your inheritance in heaven. Do not believe these preachers that say, oh, God will forgive you if you take the mark of the beast. He will understand. No, he will not. The scriptures say he's going to send you straight into the gates of hell because you have severed your inheritance by becoming a transhuman. And when you connect to that artificial intelligence, it is the same thing that Daniel spoke about all those years ago when he said the final generation will be clay and iron.
Correct. It's absolutely 100%. I have a question for you. Okay, so kind of along the same lines, but going back to Charles, do you not find it interesting that both Catherine and Charles have been diagnosed with, we don't know what kind of cancer Catherine has. It hasn't been revealed to us. But we know that Charles has one of the most aggressive cancers you can get, being pancreatic cancer. Don't you find it interesting that because they're the elite and they have the cure for cancer? It's almost as if this is.
Well, let me ask you this, because I understood that Charles had prostate cancer, but it's now been changed to pancreatic.
Yeah, they found it while he was having his prostate examined and going through the examinations. But they're saying now that it was not prostate cancer, that it is pancreatic.
Well, if it's pancreatic cancer, I know very few people who have ever survived pancreatic. It is the most lethal cancer.
Correct.
That is like a death sentence when you get that. And it's something that the person will not last very long. They will not last very long, even if they take chemo and do whatever they can do. I mean, there's been people that had pieces cut out and all kinds of things, but they just didn't make it. And then when you look at Catherine, the fact that it was abdominal and it's serious,
Right.
I mean, you got to stop and think it has to be something that's pancreatic with her.
Or it even could be intestinal. I mean, I don't know what, because we're not being told, which I find that kind of odd as well, is because it was supposedly a planned operation, yet it came out of the blue. And, you know, there's just a lot of questions, but it just seems odd that not odd to me, but it seems to go right along with our expectations that Charles was not going to be king for very long.
And the other thing is that William gets to be king, and maybe he doesn't have a wife. Where there's always been the question about where does he stand, and I know there's always been the speculation now that he was running around on Kate and all kinds of things were going on. Yeah. The thing that really does concern me is that if they have this planned, you would think they always eat organic. You know, they're always talking about over there about their gardens and things that they do, how that was set up for both of them to get cancer at the same time. But it's like we were talking about before, never had a pope been in a situation that he just stepped down. So to get somebody to where they need to go quickly, then I hate to say it, but the satanic group will do whatever to get it there. And if it means sacrificing somebody, they will sacrifice somebody. I don't care if it's Charles or anybody. They will sacrifice them.
Yeah.
Their sacrifice, you know, their sacrificial desires are for control. And so when unfortunately, when that serpent lineage, they know that. A lot of people just don't get that when you worship something and you're part of something that's like that, their mindsets are totally different than what you and I are. It's more in line with like the kamikaze pilots,
right,
in World War.
Well, we have that little voice in our head, our conscience, you know, kind of leading and directing us. I don't think those people have that inner voice.
No, and a lot of people ask me sometimes, they say, Joy, about the serpent lineage, can they be saved? Because they all think that it has something that, you know, you can be saved. And I'm like, they don't ever seek salvation. Because a lot of people think because they have Rh negative blood, or that they had some kind of thing that happened to them as children where they were maybe a part of an Illuminati family group and they were involved in all this, you know, sacrificial rituals and whatever. Yeah. But the thing about it is, a true serpent, their father is the devil. They worship him. They do not ever seek salvation. They never. I mean, do you think
from the beginning, and they will always be the reprobates, and they will never seek out salvation because it's not something that is in the cards for them from the very get-go.
Right. In Scripture, I wish I could think of where it's located, but it says once that adder is like that, he never changes being an adder.
Right.
But there is a scripture about the adder in the womb, and when it comes out of the womb, there's a scripture that I just have to look up. But if people are listening, you can just put in there that it never changes. It's one of those things that comes out. It never seeks salvation. It never changes. And I truly believe that's where those people are at. I look at it at Cain. He clearly when God came to him walking, and he knew better because his parents had been, put out of the garden, he literally said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" when he asked about Abel. He didn't really care to tell him the truth. And you would think, if this is the creator and you already see what has happened to your mom and your stepfather, then you would know not to be playing games with creator God. But he had no desire to try to get anything right. He was mad because he didn't get approval, but yet he didn't follow what clearly Abel had done with his first fruits. And you know that Adam and Eve had told them both, when you carry this to God, it's got to be your first fruits. He didn't care about that. And you think about Judas Iscariot doing the same thing when he sold really Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, instead of going back and saying, "Look, I made a mistake." I mean, here is a man that walked with God, saw him, Jesus, do these miracles, save these people, heal these people, raise people from the dead. He saw that, but yet he didn't come back and say, "I made a mistake," knowing that Jesus, if he had done that, would have forgiven him. But he never did that. And he was the adder there in the beginning, and Jesus knew he was the adder. He knew who was going to betray him. He knew what he was going to do, because you look at Peter. Peter denied him 3 times. And then when Jesus asked him, "Peter, do you love me?" He asked him 3 times to get rid of those 3 things that he did in denial of him. And he said, "Feed my sheep." If Judas had come back and said, "I made a mistake.
Right.
I asked for forgiveness," under all circumstances and what scripture says, Jesus would have forgiven him.
Right.
But those kinds of people who are that serpent lineage never seek salvation. They will never, ever do it. So if you're a person out there and you have these thoughts in your head that you might be from the serpent lineage, I'll just tell you this. If you're loving Jesus Christ or seeking salvation or wanting to be saved, you can be saved, because you are not a serpent. If you were a serpent, you would never, ever, ever seek that salvation. Ever. Ever.
Exactly. Like I said, reprobates from the beginning, they have no desire to change.
That's right.
Well, if you really think about it, the majority of people in this world have that mentality. It's so bad that even in churches have started implementing serpent mentality.
Yeah.
It is sad.
You know the hashtag that goes around, especially with people in sports, that Mamba mentality. Mamba is a serpent.
That's right.
Right.
And they have that in the church. I was listening to a video earlier today as I was driving my oldest daughter to cello practice, and it was just talking about how blasphemous some of these mainstream pastors are in the church. These are worldly pastors who look at themselves as gods and tell everybody the same to how they thought. That's completely evil, coming from the serpent itself.
Well, we know that Satan's in the church. I mean, he knows the Bible is better than probably most people know the Bible. So he's very familiar. I mean, he knew God in the beginning, since he was the first created being. And he knows he has great capability. And his intention is to take every child of God that he can get to listen to him right into the gates of hell. So it's really pretty serious when people don't pay attention that we're dealing with an entity that is brilliant. I mean, that's why he was able to beguile and hoodwink. He was the greatest intelligent factor in as far as a beast in the field, in the garden. So we're not dealing with something that's, unfortunately, we played Satan out to be a little guy dressed in a little red suit, and real cute and jumping around and stabbing things with his pitchfork. That's nothing what he is. And so we've not given credit to a being that is out for our blood. He's out for our souls that will never see an eternal paradise if he can hoodwink us into doing and participating in sin. I mean, that's what he's been doing since the moment we were created, is to try to make us fall and end up in the gates of hell with him for all eternity. And it's sad to think that we are living in these last days, and the Laodicean church is what's supposed to be in play during that time. And clearly, like what you just said, Early, that's what's happening. It's the Laodicean church. It's the church that he said, that God said, I'd spew you out of my mouth because you're neither hot or cold. You're lukewarm. I mean, they're down there jumping around, and the altar is no longer sacred, and they're dancing, and their lights are going, and it's a big,
the Kundalini spirit, you can tell is I mean,
yes.
People say, oh, it's so charismatic and the Holy Spirit is moving through, and I'm looking at it going, no, that's not what we're witnessing here.
That's right. You get the drums going, and you're doing the same thing with rhythmic beats. And that's one thing I love. I'm a musician. I love music. There's not too much music that I don't really care for. Rap is one of them that I just don't mess with, because I know that I've studied that enough to know that that causes some severe problems with the water in our own bodies because of the beats and the words that's being used. But what really concerns me is that you get these praise and worship songs that will sing over and over and over and over. It's repetitious. And anything that's repetitious is hypnotic. And then you add a certain beat to it. It's the same thing as the shamans did in Africa to work people up into a frenzy and cause them to have these out-of-body experiences and deal with familiar spirits and all that kind of stuff. It's the same exact thing. And they'll try to say, oh, like you said, it's so charismatic, and I just have this feeling. You got to be careful about what's causing it, because the lights at a certain flickering, the beat at a certain beat, and then the repetitious singing over and over and over is hypnotic. And so it's not a spiritual thing from a Holy Ghost. It's not a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing from evil.
Did you happen to see, it happened, I think last week, there was a men's conference going on.
Oh, yes. They had the pole dancer.
They had the pole dancer, and one of the men got up. His name's Mark. I can't remember his last name, but he got
Mark
up.
Driscoll.
Yes.
Mark Driscoll, thank you. He got up and he rebuked that what was happening. And hold on a second. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, I seen what happened was, and he got kicked off the stage by them.
Yeah, and now the guy that was the lead minister is attacking Mark Driscoll because he said that you should have come to me in private. That's not how you do things. You violated the word of God. And Mark is saying, look, the sin was public, so I did a public rebuke on it, and he's getting a lot of backlash. But let me tell you something. There is no room for a pole dancing stripper.
That gay bar pole dancing stripper from the past.
Yes. There's no room. I watched the performance, and it was sort of swallowing, and that had no place in the house of God.
Well, there's a great analogy to this. Somebody talked about this today. It was one of the things I listened to. And he said that carnal churches will lead carnal men into the church.
Ooh.
To keep them in the church, the carnality will have to be on the increase. Even a pastor, one of the blasphemous pastors, even said to keep people elevated in the church, they have to have some form of entertainment. Now, this was a men's conference to uplift men, to have them become stronger in the faith, to become leaders of God's people.
That's right.
Yet they're putting on these shows where monster truck rallies and pole dancers and stuff like that. I mean, in a way, when you do have an issue with somebody in the church, you do first do it privately. It is written in scripture.
When a person sins against another person.
But these things transpired in public, in the atmosphere where we're supposed to be uplifting men, and this could jeopardize somebody's salvation because of it. So it had to have been addressed.
Correct.
Well, the thing about it, they said it was to make people or men to be better husbands and fathers and brothers and whatever. And then the other thing is, I heard that Mark Driscoll had done that to help promote a book. They were trying to do whatever they could do to just downplay what he did. The thing about it is, they had built a stage out off of the regular area for the man to do the dance. He had a pole. He was known gay stripper in the past. He does swallow swords. But the moment he took his shirt off, he was an abomination to God, because he was literally displaying the flesh, the lust of the flesh, and dancing and doing what he did, pulling himself. I don't care if it was athletic. There is nothing, I think, athletic about a man playing on a pole. And I don't think it's athletic for a woman to do that. And I know they do that in all these bars and things, and that's a whatever. But that goes back to the May Day pole, which was all pagan. When you talk about May Day and everybody dancing around the pole, that is as pagan as you can get. So using a pole, just putting that pole in that facility that was going to be worshiping Jesus Christ was wrong. The man didn't have to do anything. The pole right there was enough to say that is a pagan symbol. It is to emphasize a man's part, his private part. That's where you get the belief. That's what the Egyptians were doing. That's what when you look at the Washington Monument, these things were put there by pagans, fertility practitioners who worship the sexual organs. So the pole itself was bad enough. The man taking his shirt off and dancing around it was not good either, because that just showed the lust of the flesh and what he was doing. Now, when Driscoll got up and he did what he did, I think he did what he should have done. He should have done it public. I don't think he should have ever gone. He should have said, look, there are people here that came to see me, and then you've let this happen in front of them. I'm not going to leave this facility. I would have been the same way. I'm not leaving this facility without other people knowing I disagreed with that. If I went to a conference, and I go and do conferences, and I got up and did my presentation, and then after my presentation or whatever, they had women stripping or doing some kind of crazy something like that, I would personally want the people who went there to see me to know I totally did not agree with that and why. So I have no problem with what they did. But there is no way, because I have put together events and had, weekend events that I planned and had speakers and had things happen. There's no way that I would have asked somebody to come and done whatever at this thing. I used to raise money for handicapped people. So if they didn't have a credibility about them, I had them come in and say, if they were going to perform, I want to see a picture of you performing. I want to know where you've done this at. I'm going to go watch it. Right. If you're going to sell an arts and crafts at my festival, I want to be able to see your product. I want to see how you sell it. I want to see you in action in another facility before I let you be a part of what I'm doing, because I didn't want anything to discredit what I was doing for handicapped people. Right. Right. So you can't tell me that something of that nature, that big, that the people who put that together did not know exactly what that man was going to be doing. And I think it's an abomination. I think that it's no different than I've tried to say about an Easter egg hunt on church grounds. An Easter egg hunt is a pagan practice. When you put it on holy ground, do you think God is happy about that? I don't think so.
Or when you have these churches, passing out candy at Halloween. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it trunk. You can call it your fall festival. You can call it whatever you want. The fact remains, you're doing it on this pagan day, dressing up in costumes, doing the same thing that pagans did. You know what? You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig.
It's still a pig. And I agree totally with that. And that's the thing about having anything like that. There was nothing about his pole dancing. I mean, he was literally a gay stripper who had done that in the past.
Right.
There was nothing about swallowing a sword that should have been anything exciting about God. But let me tell you, if you had wanted to do this right, let's just say the guy had been a gay stripper pole dancer, okay? He could have come out and said, look, I have seen the light. God has saved me, and stood there and maybe told them about, this is my past life and this is my future life. He could have swallowed a sword and said, I've pierced myself with the sword of Christ, or done something that would have given honor to Jesus Christ. What he did was literally something so sexual, so phallic, so evil. And the thing about it is so homosexual. I'm sorry. It just, that's what it was.
The crazy part of it is that a lot of people are having a problem with it. First off, they don't see that there was anything wrong with it. But those are the people that sit down and watch Joe Osteen, Hillsong, and all of these big mega churches who their only goal is to get seats, butts in seats and money in their collection. And they don't hold their pastors accountable. The pastors tickle everybody's ears. They validate everybody's sins. They preach a different gospel. And I think that Mark Driscoll I feel bad for him, because I wish he would have been stronger in Christ to stand up to the criticism that happened afterwards.
Well, as well as I do, it's just like when all the things happened with our sickness that happened in this country. The people who tried to stand up, really people who I believe were God's soldiers, who stood up and tried to say, look, this is all being, falsified, and this is the right thing to do. And those people had their livelihoods taken from them. Right. Some people had their lifelong certificates to be able to practice medicine. Right. They're taken from them. There were people who lost their royalty fees with books and things. I mean, there was some serious consequences, and those people were doing nothing but telling the truth. Right. So I'm sure that he has undergone great scrutiny for what he did. Even, when that came out, Laura, I posted something about that on Facebook, and I literally had people who did the same thing. I didn't see anything wrong with it. He wasn't pole dancing. Well, excuse me. But the problem is they didn't understand the pagan symbol of just the pole being there.
Right, right.
And so when that started, I went back out and I found the video of the man doing, because it's one thing to say about it. It's another thing when I see people do that and start getting really whatever on Facebook. Take and put the direct thing out there and you look at it. Now, if somebody can look,
my husband commented on your post, and I found the video myself and I gave it to him underneath your post to look at, because it's one thing to read an article, and it's another thing to actually watch and what happened and to see for yourself. Joy, I didn't see a lot of people getting up and leaving.
See, that's the thing about it is I don't know whether there was so much shock that they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Like, why is, and you've seen people do that. Like, what is going on? Why are they doing that?
Right.
You can get like that. I know I went to see Jesus Christ Superstar was something I saw years ago, a play. Yep. And so I saw where it had come out for the 50th anniversary, and it was advertised as Andrew Lloyd Webber's Jesus Christ Superstar and that kind of thing. And of course, I was a young girl at that time, and that was kind of a big thing when the first, what I would say, praise and worship music came in, or the Christian music that had a rock beat.
Christ Superstar were the two main ones at that era. I couldn't wait for Godspell to come on TV. They played, and Jesus Christ Super, they played it right around Easter time every year.
Well, and so I bought the tickets to go, and what happens is I get in there, And the new Jesus Christ Superstar is not the original Jesus Christ Superstar, although it was advertised like it was. And the music that added a song to it, which made it look like Jesus and Mary Magdalene had been together. But I found myself in a situation like those people probably did. I'm waiting. The music's coming on. It's got the same music. It's got the curtain that's got the symbols and everything that's correct. And all of a sudden the curtain opens and I'm expecting to see what I saw years ago with a presentation. And they've got a cross that's literally laying to the side on the ground. And the people are doing all their stuff on top of a cross like it's in Harlem or in Chicago. And it's nothing like anything like Jesus Christ Superstar. And so the person that was with me, I'm like, what is this? We're looking at each other like we knew all the music. We had the old tapes to the Jesus Christ Superstar. And all these people are running down the cross and sitting on the cross. It is nothing. It is nothing like and literally I kept waiting for this, like, is this a joke? Is it going to change? Are they about to do something different? But I found myself sitting there with my mouth open. So I can understand why some people may have sat there and just being like, what is this? Because I found myself doing that with Jesus Christ Superstar. And if anybody sees that advertised as the 50th anniversary, do not do that, because it is not the original. And they make a mockery out of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Not be mocked, people. I don't understand why. I can't comprehend why people don't understand this. He will not be mocked. Oh my goodness.
Well, the thing about it, I had told the person that went with me, I told him all about seeing it years ago and how it ends and the Shroud of Turin comes down. How it was wonderful. I mean, it left you with chill bumps because of what Jesus did for us. They made it like a rock star, like Jesus was a rock star, and they had him playing a guitar, standing on top of a cross on the ground. I'm telling you, if that's still playing out there somewhere, and you think it's like, I wanted my money back. I even said it going out of the theater. I think I deserve my money back. And people were not clapping, because usually you would clap after something. So I think that they probably were caught off guard, just like I was. It was advertised as something, and then all of a sudden, what are you into? But it's a sad day when a man stands up like the guy did and rebukes what happened. I mean, my great-grandfather was a deacon, and they had a pastor come in for a meeting for the church, and he didn't preach the gospel as to what they believed. And my grandfather, who was a deacon, got up and escorted the man out of the church. So there used to be people who weren't afraid to stand up for Jesus and say what's going to be right. But this day and time, if you stand up for Jesus and you knock something like a pole dancer, then you're the bad guy, which we know at the end of days is going to happen, because it's like the days of Noah, where these people don't see evil as evil. They think we're the bad guys.
Right. Exactly.
That's sad.
Exactly. And the bad part of it was, when Mark got up there, he was genuinely, rebuking what was happening. And you said it was John MacArthur. You could hear him off camera, off stage, going, "You're done. You're done."
Well,
and he picked up his stuff and he left and everything. So it was something to be seen. You guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's all pretty much all over the internet, all over YouTube.
Yes.
Right now. Let's see, I'm looking at the time. I want to talk, to kind of switch directions here, and I want to ask your opinion about this, Joy.
I'm wondering if you're going to ask me. I'm kind of hoping it's going to be about something. Oh yes, I knew that was coming. we had a discussion going to church tonight, because my friends that were with me absolutely saw the announcement for tonight that I had sent out to my Facebook friends and things, so they could listen. And they had not heard about this particular incident, so we discussed it on the way to church. And I just think it's very weird how we've got 2 people in the British royal family that are very sick. And the fact that most of the horses that they usually have to ride in their parades and all this, I mean, these are not like just regular horses.
No.
These are like major trained, the
Yes.
best of the best, purebreds, whatever.
They are fed the best of the best. They are given the parental treatment. There is no way that, first off, there's no way they could have gotten out of where they gotten out of. And secondly, well, let's take a look. Let's what are the chances of 2 of the king's horses, 1 black and 1 white,
Yeah, now that's kind of, I mean, they tried to say, what was it, 5 horses that really got spooked or whatever about that. But then I just thought it was interesting that you end up with a black and
And a
white one.
exactly.
And
It
you've
says
got that white one with that blood
covered with blood. Exactly.
all over him. And I can understand they ran into stuff. But then the other thing was that Big Ben, the clock,
The clock
that had
yes.
been refurbished in 2022 and paid all that money to have it redone,
Yes.
it hangs up at 9 a.m. when all that's taking place in the streets of London. And those
And-
horses ran for 5 miles. What was
Not
it, from
only-
Buckingham Palace?
Not only did Big Ben stop at 9 o'clock, but when it chimed 11 times.
Right, which was really weird.
Right.
That was incorrect. And I've researched that. They have yet to figure out why that did that. They don't have an explanation for why that did
It
that.
froze on 9 o'clock, and it was there for, I don't know how long, but when it went to chime, it did not chime 9 times, it chimed 11 times. So you got the 9-11, you got the 2 horses, the black and the white horse. And when you look at, prophecy and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Well, you look at, the thing about it is you look at the white horse, and in the white horse, the rider is the Antichrist. And you look at that in Revelation 6:29.
Right.
And we know that Antichrist counterfeits the return of Christ, and that he is going to produce kind of a fraudulent peace plan. Well, we see what's happening in the Middle East right now. Something's going to have to walk in there and do that. But I just think it's interesting that the white horse had that blood on him like that. That just gave me, it eerily gave, without even anybody reading anything, when I just watched that happen, I'm like, what are the odds of that being a white horse with blood? And when you talk about the return of Jesus, it says that his garment on the side is dipped in blood, when he comes back. So I'm like, that's just a little weird that you've got a white horse and the 4 horsemen thing. That's the Antichrist. And then you've got the black horse that's in verse 8 there in Revelation 6. It's producing famine and all the bad stuff as this 666 program with the Antichrist becomes activated. And what are we looking at right now? We're looking at the possibility it's time for the Antichrist to step on the scene, and the fact that we're dealing with famine and inflation, and we're about to look at going into a digital currency, all because of this mark of the beast going to be activated. So I just think it was just really weird. I mean, the red horse in verse 4 talks about wars and rumors of wars. Well, you can clearly see the talk of wars and rumors of wars happening all around us. And then the pale horse in verse 8 is disease and death with hell following him. Well, look at H5. The thing that I'm concerned about right now is H5N1. I'm very concerned about that because we're seeing that escalate from, it started out in 4 states, then it was 6 states, now it's 9 states.
Is that the one we're finding in milk now?
Yes, the milk, and it's already killed how many billions of birds in the United States. I mean, last year we had a loss of turkeys, so they didn't know if there had been enough turkeys to go around for Thanksgiving.
Right.
So now you've got it in the bird population, in the wild bird population, and you've got it in these milk cows in 9 states and so many, I think 22 herds now or something like that was the last numbers that I think I saw. But you're going to yourself, the chickens and the birds are dying in 2 states that were severe because it was so bad that the biggest, distribution of eggs in that particular area, where that was the largest distributor, I think it was in Texas, was shut down because it was showing up in the eggs and all this kind of stuff. So my question is, if it was in 2 states with the birds and the deadliest population with the birds, where did those cows in 9 states get this? Now, if we've got birds flying over ducks, I mean, it's in ducks and geese, it's in anything that's in birds like that. It can travel around. It just seems a little bit strange that you don't have a lot of birds dying in those areas where those cows are coming down with it. So I'm like, we're talking about mammal to mammal transmission if it's not each one of those cows had to come in contact with a bird.
Right.
You know that as well as I do. That's just saying, here we go. It just seems a little bit not adding up because you would think that there should be 9 states with a lot of birds dying for cows to be getting sick. And that's not happening. So now they found the milk is tainted. And then they tried to say, the pasteurization would handle that. But they looked at some pasteurized milk, and I understand that there was remnants of the virus still there. And the same thing with the eggs. They thought pasteurization of all that stuff was going to eliminate the virus and that the transmission could not go to humans. And we know that 2 humans have had it. I think there's 20 odd, some other people, 28 people or something that are being watched to see if they have it. But the thing about it is, as it gets into the mammal population, it's already in cats and it's in other animals like seals and things of that nature. They found it in fox. If we see it start mutating, and that's more than likely what's going to start happening, then the mutations become very serious. And the transmission of this is quite quick, a lot quicker than the last situation we were in. So there's already been the CDC talking about, well, we've already got vaccinations for that.
Go figure.
Why and where? And they said, but that was from a beginning one, an old one. Okay. In my opinion, the old stuff, once it mutates, becomes something different. We've already seen that with mutation of just the flu. If we have a flu shot come out, the next year it's not the same flu, it's mutated, it's different. So you've got to take another flu shot. So every time you talk about any kind of virus, it's not going to stay the same. And then it starts jumping species, then it's going to start mutating to be able to manifest itself within the host and give it to another host and that kind of thing. So
once it jumps species, or once it the 2 major things that are relevant is, one is when it jumps species, and 2 is when it breaks the blood-brain barrier. Those are the 2 things that they look at for these new viruses. And I had H1N1 back in 2012 when it came out, and if I was to catch that now, I wouldn't be here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And you look at H5N1, and it's got just a little bit different thing about it. As it mutates, it's going to get more virulent. I guess is how they say the word virulent. But the thing about it is, when going back to what we were talking about with the 4 horsemen, you clearly see that the red horse producing wars and rumors of wars is already happening. And you can see the pale horse has already produced some serious diseases that we have never had happen across the country. But the thing about it, by showing a white horse and a black horse running together, that's just like, here comes the Antichrist.
Right.
And
London, it happening, but any other city but London, where we know William, that's where William is. Did you see
that's right. It just seems too ironic. It's like when we've talked about all the things that we talk about with the royal family and William and all that, we've really gone in detail about that in the past. Those are not coincidences.
No.
So anything that you see like this, it's just like, how odd is it, like you say, that we know that those people are involved at the end of days with the trying to save planet Earth, with his Earthshot prizes, all this kind of stuff that they do. That's where the old Roman Empire is still run under the British Commonwealth. I mean, all the things that are adding up. They're the only ones that can claim their lineage directly back to King David. They're the only ones that could ever say, I'm a prophet, priest, and king. They have the genetics. They have the Jewish connection. I mean, William fulfills everything that Scripture says that the Antichrist has to have. And now we've got, like you say, a white horse running through the street with a black horse, and you're going, what's the odds of that? But then what's the odds of time standing still for an hour on a clock that should not have happened?
Let me go one step further. Okay, so the horses, okay, they're in serious condition, but they were named, the white horse was named Vita, and the black horse was named Trojan. Vida in Spanish and Portuguese is the word that means life.
Oh. Like almost like life and death.
Yeah.
I just, again,
and we don't believe in coincidences. Let's just put that.
I don't, and I know there's a lot of conspiracy around it, and things happen, and you can attribute things to things. But I just know that because we are at the end of days, everything is significant. Right. And sometimes you just wonder, how in the world could that have happened with those horses and those two end up together under the circumstances that they did? It probably wouldn't have made me as eerie feeling to have seen the black horse with the blood mark and the white horse clean. But having the white horse,
even if it was, like a just when you tie the two horses, the black one, the white one, the blood, and then, like you said, time standing still on the Big Ben. What's interesting is, I don't know if you've ever talked about the Illuminati card game. Have we ever talked about that?
Yes. We've never talked about it, but I'm very familiar with what you're talking about, the card game, because so many times those cards have those images on them.
There is a Big Ben.
Yes, there is one.
And I should look at it and see what the time. I'm not looking up. See what time it says on it, because if it says 9 o'clock, I'm leaving.
That would be even worse if it's got 9 o'clock, because I remember on there they were showing it during the time that they had the 2012 Olympics in London. That card came up or something, and there were people who were using that card on some things. But yeah, that would be interesting to know if it said 9 o'clock, if it did. Even 9, 10, or 11 o'clock, since we know it actually rang at 11 bells when it really should not have rang at 11 bells. That was even weirder. So
I'm just going to take a look. See here. So Steve Jackson's games, you guys knew. Big Ben, where is it? Why is it not bringing it up? Big Ben.
They may have pulled it down. That's one thing I've noticed, that they're starting to remove things from where we used to pull them up.
Well, I've got a Mandela effect for you after we're done with this. Oh, here it is. I got it. Oh boy.
This will be interesting to see what it looks like.
looks like 1110.
1110.
They're on the big hand's on the 11, and the other hand's on the 2.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I always thought that Illuminati card thing was quite strange, and who came up with that, and
Well,
why
when
they
you
even
look
show it.
at the history of it, and you go in and you look at Steve Jackson and the whole thing behind it, they did use remote viewing, I believe, to create those.
See,
The
and that's the
FBI
thing. If
did
they
go-
did that,
Yeah, the FBI went in and confiscated all their computers back, and this was in the 80s, guys. This wasn't like, quantum.
But it was not recent. It was not recent.
It was
I
back in
agree.
the 80s. And that, again, what are the chances of, having, I don't know how many is in this. I actually have one of the sets. I don't have the original set, but I have a set of their cards. What is it called? Hold on a second. It's right here. Illuminati, the Game of Conspiracy, Steve Jackson games.
Yes.
Let me get my camera real quick. Take a look at this that I have. And I've actually done a couple live streams about these, and I've opened them up, Robbie and I back. But this is not the original one. The original one, they wanted like $400 for it, and I was okay with that. But I believe that they were created through remote viewing, and
Well, that's the thing about it. There's too much that's similar there to what happens as far as what they've got planned, and then it falls into place.
Yeah.
But I remember the Big Ben was used during the time of the Olympics, and I can't remember what they were saying about something in the Olympics when 2012, the Olympics were there. But I do think for us to not pay attention to what happens with the royal family right now, you need to be paying attention, because it's going to escalate to a point, if they do in fact both have that kind of seriousness in their cancers, that something immediate will start happening and changing. And I think that we're ready to go with a digital currency. I think that we could be thrown into a crisis and we could be switched quickly. I don't think it would take that much to switch us over and everything go digital.
I was talking to Lori the other day, and we were talking about Charles, and I said he may not make it to the weekend. And you know what? It's just something that's just telling me that he's probably already gone.
Well, there's been all that speculation that he and Kate both, have died, and that they're just replacing them with people to look like it until they get ready to allow you to know about it. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could be happening, but the thing is that we know that William meets the credentials. And if we are at the end of days and they're getting ready to put us into a digital currency using a crisis, there'll be a crisis. Now, whatever that crisis is going to be, who knows what it can be. It can be that wormwood is coming and it's going to hit us. It can be the fact that this H5N1 is going to do something really weird. All kinds of little things can go to the point where they have to say, we've got to get your hands off of money, transfer of money to keep the economy from falling into an even worse situation. There's all kinds of crises that could happen to force us into digital currency. And once that happens, once it goes digital, we're done. Whether the Antichrist is on the scene at that point in time, once everything goes digital for money, you cannot produce money. And so bartering is not going to work, because you're going to keep what you need. And the fact is, money in that situation where people would hoard things and make a lot of money off of something, they can't do that, because they can't take anything and put it in cyberspace for them to maintain themselves on.
Right.
You just get to the point that you are under total control.
Right. You had talked about how William needs credentials. And we talked about how, Charles had to take place. He had to become king in order to give William the credentials. And I'm going to put something up on the screen because we've talked about the shield. We've talked about their coat of arms and how it lines up with the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation.
Right.
Talks about Charles being the red dragon. And in Revelation 13:4, it says, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power to the beast. So the dragon, we know through Charles's coat of arms, it says it's right there. You can see the bottom right on the emblem. There's the red dragon. So he needed to be in place in order to give power unto William.
Right. And he had to do that, and that's exactly what he's done. He has given him. And then the other day, I was reading something where he had honored him with a new title. And I thought that was kind of interesting. He gave Camilla a title. And then the title that he gave to Kate was something he had made up, or was a new thing based on a kind of not even a, it was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I thought, why did they all of a sudden come out with this? I mean, what's the deal with more titles? What's involved with having more titles? And then to just kind of conjure up one, I just thought that was really strange.
Yeah,
was it going to be something that she was going to have happen to her, and they're going to use that where she was over that, whatever? There's something behind that. It's just weird that he gave out these titles.
Charles has given Catherine, Princess of Wales, a new title that marks the first in the history of the British royal family. The palace announced a new list of honors on St. George's Day on April 23rd, which includes naming the former Kate Middleton a royal companion of the Order of the Companions of Honor. What does that even mean?
I just thought it was weird.
Royal companion.
Why was that even needed? There's something behind that.
She's the royal companion of the Order of the Companions of Honor. Marks the first. Let's see what embassy marks the first. Oops. Okay. New title marks the first in the history of the British royal family. The palace announced the new list of honors on King George's Day. And she is the first member of the royal family to ever be appointed to the Companions of Honor.
I mean, it's almost like something where you had been the companion of, let's say, a royal family member. And then if you died, that would be something historic, maybe. I don't understand why that was even made up. It does. First of all, it doesn't even make sense as to what it is. No. It's out there in left field. And then what he gave to Camilla and to William, unless the fact that he was giving them something, he felt obligated to give her some kind of new title. It was just, the whole thing was a little weird.
What's he did give Camilla?
I mean, whatever they gave William was something that I guess Charles had been before he became
right. Yeah, that was passed down. That was given, because Charles had it. And now it's passing down to him. But I mean, Catherine is already, she's some military honors she's got. I mean, she's like, trying to remember. I just got done watching The Crown, and there was one of the old, like back in the 40s and 50s, they had the title where they were it was military titles, but they never even been in the military.
Yeah. And
she has one of those military titles. I don't remember what. Crazy.
Very interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be I'm feeling September, and I don't know why, but I think September is going to be significant, because not only will that be within that 6-month time frame that we know that pancreatic cancer, like we said, it's fast, aggressive moving
yes
cancer.
It is,
but not only that, but it's it puts us in enough timetable where enough chaos can be created between September and our elections.
Well, we know that our elections are going to be a problem in this country.
Yeah.
We know that whatever is going to happen with these elections is going to be a major problem. And we don't even know whether the vote machines were ever corrected, if they were ever checked out. So we don't know really how our votes are really going to be counted, and if they're going to be really the truth. So I think it's setting itself up for us to have some kind of major problem with our voting that's going to be done in this country. And then that sets up an unrest. And of course, we know that when our adversaries see us caught up in our own game playing within our own little United States, that sets them up for a big punchline to come at us in other areas. And China and Russia are just waiting for an opportunity to see us dig into a situation and have problems and unrest in our country, because once we get into those kinds of unrest, then we're vulnerable. We're very vulnerable. And they know that. And of course, if I was watching something and I wanted to jump in, then that would be what I would be paying attention to as well. You want to attack, and animals do this. They go after the one that's the weakest. They find the weakest link when they're down and out, when they're hurt. That's when the planned attack is. And so, yes, I think that would be a very vulnerable time for us here in the United States. We saw what happened the last time we had an election, and it was not good. So if you look at that, and then you look at, like you say, the timeline of people with these cancers like this, very serious indeed. And then, like I've said, there is nothing stopping really digital currency. If they can keep pushing till they get the hand in the cradle and the connection up to your forehead. I mean, you've got the mark of the beast in the right hand and the forehead. Perfect example of how that's going to work. And they've already set it up with Amazon One, the palm thing. And then, of course, the pineal gland being able to transmit and receive your actual DNA that is your number, so they can find you anywhere you are. Don't think they cannot find you anywhere. You cannot hide.
They've even admitted that a lot of the things that they have are DNA specific, where you know they can pick out somebody and you know, like you said, find their frequency and send out that frequency and make that person sick.
Very sick. That's the thing about it. It can be specialized to whoever. And the fact that we also know, Laura, that all these times we've heard the military personnel come forward way back in the day when people were not really, they were made to be conspiracy theorists or whatever, or they were just shunned for coming out and saying about the guillotines, that they had seen these guillotines all kept. Well, and these boxes to put people in. We've heard stories about that from people who died. Let's just say did a deathbed confession.
Yeah.
I think about people that, like the guy that wrote "Behold a Pale Horse,"
Bill Cooper.
Yeah, he was a perfect example of trying to tell some things, and then he's dead. So we've heard stories about these weird things, and guillotines have been something that I received information over the years from different people who just said, I just want you to know that I saw these and what they were like and where they were located at.
Yep.
I've had different people tell me that over the years that they're out there, and that these boxes that they've seen lined up for being able to burn the bodies or put the bodies in mass numbers. There's something, or we wouldn't have all of that stockpiled.
Well, the Obamacare put in originally it was an ICD-9 code, but now it's an ICD-10 code that is specific to beheadings.
Yes.
Why would you need a code if the technology wasn't available to carry out that specific act? You know, a lot of people over the years, you know, you and I and Ernie and people that do this are in a unique we're in a unique position to receive news or information, I should say. We receive information over the years, And I remember somebody contacting me probably back in 2013, something like that. And he was in Georgia, and he was a military kid. He was young, and he said that he was on a bus and he was getting leave and he was going home, and he had contacted another person. I got the secondhand information. He had contacted another person so that he had actually seen them, and he was scared, and that he didn't even know if he was going to go. He may have gone AWOL. I don't know. We never heard from him after that, but they were in Georgia. There was 30,000 of them. They were obtained, and he had said that there was right around the time that Obama did the litmus test with his military. And he asked the military, he said, if I were to give you the orders to open fire against the American people, would
I remember that.
carry out this order. And if the general said no, they were out. You guys can look this up, 2014.
That's right.
14. He got rid of a lot of his top brass because they said no. And so that's when they brought in the foreign soldiers and trained them here, because to them we are the enemy. They don't see us. You know, if you were to tell an American soldier to open fire on American people, his conscience would be like, I can't do that.
That's right.
You know? But a foreign entity would have absolutely no problem carrying out those orders.
That's exactly right. And I remember when that happened. So yes, that's very, very, very real. I just think that there is, well, the guys that want to pull this plan off don't want anybody revealing what's going to happen. They do it when they want you to know it. They release it in Hollywood or little bits and pieces, and that they think it's funny because they're dangling the stuff out in front of our eyes. And most people who don't do the research like we do do not see it. And then when we try to expound upon it and try to warn people about it, then we're seen as kooks or conspiracy theorists or whatever. And it's a sad day, because we have seen over the years the things that we've been yelling and screaming at the top of our lungs are all now coming true.
Yeah.
Literally, I can go back to my books. I can go back to Eden, the Knowledge of Good and Evil, and read things to you that are happening right now. And I have a lot of people who buy my books and they'll go, how did you know that back then? And I'm like, because I was doing the research. It's the research that comes through that you know these things are going to happen. It lines itself up, and God gives you discernment. He makes you aware of things. And I've been very fortunate in that I paid attention to, where's God leading me? Does it feel right? Do I need to do more research in this area? And like I say, when I first started doing all this, I was doing it to answer my own questions. And I sure, bud, was not out to fool myself by writing anything down and keeping it and it be stupid or impossible or just a conspiracy thing. I wanted to know the truths about it. And I know that you've done the same thing. So when you see these things happening, that's right. We had to go into major bookstores or libraries and like I said many times, the little librarian that lived in the town that I grew up in, she'd see me coming, she'd go, oh my gosh, she would tell her people in there, she'd go, oh my gosh, there comes Joy, and I have no idea what book she's going to want, but it will be forever for me to find it. But she was one of those kind of people. She knew that my research meant that much to me. Yeah. And she would have to file for books at the Library of Congress and get them out of Washington, D.C. and get them sent to a little town with 2 red lights for me to be able to read them. And it might take me a couple of months before I could even get my hands on those books.
And a lot of those books, you weren't allowed to leave the library with.
You couldn't leave the library. And then some of them, you could only keep them so long. So if, in other words, they special order them, they had to be back where they were, like in a week or 2 weeks. You couldn't even keep them. And I can't remember the name of the book that I had that she got me, but I needed it longer. And we had to send it back and then had to wait for them to send it back for me to keep it. So it was pretty serious. God forbid
if somebody ordered that same book in the meantime, because you'd
had to wait even longer.
Wait your turn. Yeah.
But it was serious research back in those days, and card catalogs, going through magazines. Oh my gosh.
I mean, we didn't have tablets. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have tablets. I didn't have a tape recorder to put that on tape. I was writing everything down in
everything down in handwritten. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just aged ourselves. We just aged ourselves, Joy.
I mean, really, we've done the hard work, the very hard work. And back in the day too, we didn't have to worry about so much false information. If a person took the time to write an article or they wrote a book about something, it was important. It was important for them to put the resources in there where they got it. So you could go to, let's just say, the bibliography in there and find all the books that they had pulled from, and you could go find those books and then do your research off of those books as well, which that was the best way to do. If you found something you're interested in, find all the books that had that in it and then do the research and then try to make sure they all were congruent and nobody was like sticking out like a sore thumb and it was in the wrong direction. But that was the only way that we could verify stuff. But it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. I mean, you might work all day, 2 or 3 days, months, trying to find one little paragraph of information, and it could take you months to find it.
Exactly. And, I mean, and it wasn't for the faint of heart. I mean, you had to be pretty dedicated to getting the answer to that question that you wanted. Because again, I was in a small town as well. We didn't have a lot of books. The closest big library to me was in Buffalo, but again, a lot of the books that had to come from Washington, they had to come from the Library of Congress. And you waited your turn, and I can remember sitting. I had my favorite spot. It was like way in the back. Nobody went back there. They were like these old books, old Bibles, and I had my little. The librarian used to call it my little cubby because I had everything. I brought my book bag. I had my books, and I used to sit up against the wall and I used to just read for hours. And she used to have to make sure to come back and look for me because they were getting ready to close, and she didn't want to close me in the library overnight. And
it was terrible because, like you say, some of the libraries in those reference rooms, you could not leave. You had to stay in those reference rooms to be able to look at it. And I would be writing as fast as I could. I mean, my hands would be so cramped from trying to write so fast to get the information. So we really did this in a time when it was very difficult, but we didn't have the falsification of information like we have now, where everybody just writes things and it doesn't matter if it's true, not true, if it's on target or whatever. Our professional credibility was at stake if we brought something up and we didn't have the resources and the proof behind what we were saying. So we grew up in a time when it was detrimental to your work that you had the right resources and could quote those resources and make them available if you had to. So it's come a long way, but times have changed, and we are definitely living in the end of days where the word has told us that there will come a time when you don't know who's telling you the truth. It will look like the truth, but it's not the truth. And right now, that's what's happening all across this country, is that every day false news, fake information is garnering more attention than true. And if you try to tell the truth, then you are the bad guy.
Isn't that the truth? Wow. Absolutely. Who
would have ever thought? But we have to think about going back to Noah. I know that he had to be standing out there building his ark and everybody's standing around laughing at him.
Yeah.
And he had to keep building because he had the knowledge. God had given him the information that this was going to happen. And he knew he had to spend every waking day, every waking hour with that process in mind. And I think we feel the same way, that it's being called as watchmen on the wall, that, time is running out. And we keep trying to scream to people, pay attention to what is going on, because right now, you can be sucked down a rabbit hole so quick, and you can backslide so fast that if the catching away occurs or the second coming comes in and you're not ready for that, you're going to spend an eternity in hell, in my opinion. And I know that you and Ernie both don't want to see any of God's children go into the gates of hell. And that's why we do what we do, is to try to give you information that you can look at and go, pay attention. These are red flags. Everything we've talked about tonight is a red flag. It's worth debating and talking about and trying to get the best information you can on the subject.
Exactly. And, I think all of us take being a watchman very seriously, because, it tells us if we know that something's coming, if we know something and we don't warn people, if they perish, it's on us. We're the ones.
Well, that's right. It's the blood is on our hands if we know something and we don't offer it. Exactly. So thank you for allowing me and to be on your show every month, just for us to talk about the research that I'm doing and what we've done that's so similar, so that people realize it's not a conspiracy theory. These things are based on scientific evidence. And there is a concern that we don't have a lot of time left based on what Scripture is telling us, because all of this thing is falling into place. And we're seeing it happen right before our eyes.
Exactly. Well, the pleasure is all ours for sure to have you. And unfortunately, our 2 hours is up, and
goes by so fast.
Wow, I'm sitting here listening, and wow, look at the clock. Yeah, it has been 2 hours.
It goes by. I mean, I watch it, and try to get us, everything that we want to talk about, but it goes by so fast. But we will have you back next month, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about.
Because because every time we get together, there's just been so much more between the times. And then when you and I talk, even before we do shows, we already finding things going, oh my gosh, this is just lining right up.
Exactly. So again, we will, schedule you for next month, and thank you so much, Joy.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's we want to remind everybody, as we always do, is that we give you this information. Don't believe us. Do your own due diligence. Do your own research. Study to show thyself approved. Test all things. We give you the information. I'm going to be putting links in the description below for you guys to check out. You can go back to our other videos and get that as well. You can find Dr. Joy over on her website, which is www.drjoy.com. All of her books are over there. You can find her over on Facebook. It's Joye Pugh on Facebook. And if you can't find her, find me, find Ernie, and we will point you in the direction that you can find Joy as well. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I look forward to next month.
All right. I want to thank everybody in our chat room. I want to thank all of everybody watching us. I want to thank all of our moderators for the work that they're doing. And remember, guys, until next time, eyes open, no fear.